and players smiling. But Michael Jordan is not only the best basketball player, but he's the most exciting basketball player to ever play.
Tatum fires away, pumps it in, 51 for Jason Tatum.
The Big Three NBA podcast is powered by Prize Picks and the Game Time app.
Hey everyone, welcome to this episode of the Big Three NBA podcast. Sherrod Blakely, Gary Washburn. I'm Kwani Lunis. How were your Thanksgivings? Let's start with that. Formality.
Wonderful.
Okay.
And as you guys saw, I was enjoying beautiful, sunny Palm Springs, California, getting my sunshine game on, working on that tan. It was a good time. It was a good time.
Why was he working on the tan? Anyway, Gary, how was yours?
It was very nice. My mother-in-law was in town.
I love that.
My wife put together a wonderful dinner, very cool, chill dinner, Jamaican style. So yeah, I had a good time before I left for Chicago with the Celtics on Friday. But Thanksgiving was this was a great blessing.
Mm-hmm. Great Caribbean food. Did you get any Caribbean food, Sherrod? Because I had some Haitian food, so I don't know about it.
Yeah, what kind of Caribbean food they have in Palm Springs, Sherrod?
You know what? I didn't do Caribbean this time. Maybe next year. Next year. I did have some good champagne. That was good. Had some good stuffing, some chicken, some Mexican food. Yeah, we got it.
Doesn't says Thanksgiving like a chimichurri. Oh my God.
Listen, just because Gary,
not expecting that.
Funny. Look at your boy. Look at your boy.
What's wrong with you, man?
Go get your boy.
Okay, you know what? We're gonna end this conversation because
Move forward. Maybe Sherrod had Mexican food for that Thanksgiving. Boy, the pilgrims are
Do they even celebrate Thanksgiving in Mexico? I doubt it.
We try to be multicultural up in this bad boy, all right?
Okay.
That should not have been as funny as I thought it was. Let's talk about the Celtics. I'm glad
burritos. They eat burritos.
Shut up, Sherrod.
I love burritos.
All right, the Celtics. They lost in Cleveland. Then they bounced back with a big win over Miami. No Jalen, who's out due to a non-COVID related illness. Derek White out with a foot injury in that Cleveland loss. Let's talk about the Cleveland loss first, and then we'll look ahead to winning against Miami.
Go ahead, Sherrod.
Kwani making me laugh, but I'm not really laughing.
Okay.
Listen, here's the thing. The Cleveland loss. The issue in that game, well, there were a lot of issues, but to me, it was kind of a throwaway game because the Celtics didn't have two of their best perimeter defenders, and the best player on the floor was Cleveland's best perimeter defender. Not a coincidence. And Donovan Mitchell, to his credit, typically goes off against the Celtics. There was a stat that one of the broadcasters mentioned where the only player with as many games played against the Celtics who has a higher scoring average than Donovan Mitchell is some dude named Michael Jordan, not Kwani's Michael B. Jordan. It's hard for me to say Michael Jordan and not Michael B. Jordan when I see Kwani for reasons that only Kwani, the rest of the world knows.
Anyway.
But the Michael Jordan in the NBA Hall of Fame, Michael Jordan, the real Michael Jordan, that's the only one who scored more points against the Celtics career-wise than Donovan Mitchell. So him having a big game was expected. But for me, the big takeaway for me was watching the way Cleveland tried to go at Porzingis and watching how Porzingis wasn't really dominated the way I thought he might be in this matchup. I thought he did a lot of good things. And remember, we're talking about a cat who's only a couple games away from having not played in several months. So if I'm the Celtics, you went into that game, I think, with house money, knowing that you didn't have Derek White, that you didn't have Jaylen Brown, and yet it really took Donovan Mitchell having one of the best games he's ever had against the Celtics for them to win the game by, 4 points, I think. And, the Celtics this season, keep in mind, they've lost 4 games total by a total of 14 points. So they are teams are playing some of their best basketball against the Celtics, which we expected. And the Celtics, even when that's happening, are still within striking distance in games where they're not playing their best basketball. So to me, you're going to have games like this where you're not going to get it done, but I'm not freaked out or worried or concerned about the Cavaliers if I'm the Boston Celtics.
Yeah. I thought they played really well in Cleveland the first 3 quarters, especially the second and third quarter. Third quarter might have been their best quarter of the year, considering they were missing 2 starters. But, I just saw some things I didn't like. They started messing around with the game. There was one key possession, okay? And it's one of those things when you watch a game and you put it in the back of your mind, this might come back and haunt them. It was late third quarter. They were up 14, and they had a chance to really put the screws in the lead, right? And they started messing around with the game. I think like Peyton took a 30-footer. They got the rebound, and then they took another 3 and they missed. Okay, so Cleveland comes down the court, down 14 now, late third quarter. It could have been 16 or 17, but they come down. The ball goes off of Karis LeVert's hands out of bounds, so the Celtics get a break. So they bring the ball back up. I think Drew Peterson throws a bad pass to Jason Tatum. I think Mitchell intercepted it and throws it right back to LeVert, who was under the basket because he hadn't gotten down the floor yet, and he lays it in. And it's a 12-point game, right? And to me, then that's the quarter ended. Then Mobley scores 2 buckets to begin the fourth, and then it's an 8-point game. And those are things like the Celtics could have really put them away. Now, that's not to say Cleveland wouldn't have tried to come back, but there's a big difference between a 17-point lead and an 8-point lead. And I just think sometimes the Celtics get that like home run ball. They want to really do it right. They want to take a 28-foot 3 to really build the lead. And I felt like if they had worked the ball, gotten a good 2, got to the free throw line to go up 16 entering the fourth, then you're really putting Cleveland at a disadvantage. Instead, it was only 12. That's a big difference. Then Cleveland, the Celtics didn't score for the first 2.5 minutes of the fourth, and suddenly you got a competitive game. The Celtics went up 12. Then Donovan Mitchell happened. I think Cleveland hit 3 straight threes after that to make it a 3-point game, and you're like saying, okay, they don't have the guns. You don't have White, and you don't have Brown down the stretch, so you're dependent on Peyton and Jason. And it just wasn't – and Porzingis, as much as he had a good start to the game offensively, he was struggling. He missed some shots, and they ran out of gas. And I felt like, one, you got to adjust your defense sometimes to dudes who are just hot. And I just felt like they let Mitchell was 6 for 15 through the third quarter, right? He had 15 points. He was not having a good game. But we all know he can get hot. He can get hot quickly, especially from 3. He's one of those type of players. He's an elite offensive player. And so I felt like the Celtics could have gotten the ball. If Okoro beats you, if Mobley beats you, they beat you with 2s, because what happened was the Celtics didn't hit a lot of 3s in the fourth quarter. They were 2 for 9. So they were scoring 2s. Cleveland was scoring 3s. That's how they took the lead and got back in the game and took the lead. Was they were trading the Celtics for the first time in a while was losing the numbers game. Usually they're the team hitting the 3s, the other team's hitting 2s. So I felt I was a little discouraged, and not to say like for long term, but you want to be a team, because Cleveland was definitely celebrating as if they won a big game. Like they were happy. They were very ecstatic with that win. The fans, the players, it was like, we beat Boston. And it was like, well, you beat Boston without 2 starters. But they didn't look at it that way. They looked at it like, see, we know we can compete with them. We know we can win a playoff. Like, that meant a lot to them. And I felt like if the Celtics had won that game and won on the road without 2 starters, they tell Cleveland, yeah, we'll see you in the playoffs. Like, you ain't ready for us yet. And they was this close to doing that. But I said, I felt like the defense against Mitchell should have been better. You don't let him step into some 3s. He was hot. Then once there was one play where they blitzed him, he hit Okoro. Then Okoro hits a streaking Evan Mobley for a dunk. And it's like, now, one, that would have been okay if you're down 8 and they're scoring 2s. But I think the Cavs were up 2. The Celtics had to get a stop. And they finally got the ball to Mitchell's hands, but he made the right play. and the Celtics got burned. So I thought it was a disappointing loss, considering they were up 14 late third quarter, a game they should have won. Tatum didn't just quite have it down the stretch, missed a layup. They were, hunting Darius Garland. He goes up, he misses a layup against Garland. Before that, he misses a 10-footer. So without your big guns in White and Brown and Tatum kind of sputtering, you didn't have enough to finish the game. So I thought, I know it was a long way to answer, a disappointing loss, but I also felt like that little stretch at the end of the third quarter is what led to that. I didn't like them messing around with the game like that. Like, I felt like get a good possession, because Cleveland, the fans were like, oh, God, they're whooping our ass. You could just feel it in the arena. And the Celtics had the ball up 14. It's like, no. I know it's tempting to want to take a 30-footer and go, yeah, what's up? Just get a 2. Go up 16, and then they turn the ball over, and all of a sudden it's 12. And as you guys know, a 12-point lead in the NBA is basically, that's a 4-possession game. That's nothing.
Facts.
So on the back-to-back, the other half of it was them playing Miami. They get the win. But with Boston, we look at the people that were out in that game versus Cleveland. In Miami versus Miami, Al Horford was out. Porzingis was on load management, or Drew Holiday also out in that win. Do you think those three being seated for that game was a strategic move for them to get some rest?
Go G.
Yeah, of course. I mean, I think they wanted. I mean, they played Al and Porzingis against Cleveland. They wanted to win that Cleveland game, and obviously being without White and Brown, they were shorthanded. So I thought they wanted to see what it looked like for playoff purposes, because they might beat Cleveland. Cleveland's got Allen and Mobley. They wanted to see what it was like, and the Celtics actually did pretty good. The two Cleveland bigs really didn't dominate, right? It wasn't. They didn't get dusted in that matchup. It was just, I think Porzingis kind of ran out of gas. Al's not really scoring as much this year, which is fine. He does a lot of other little things. But I thought, they knew Miami's, they got Bam Adebayo, who's an undersized 5, Thomas Bryant. The kid, Khalil Ware, who I thought would be really good this year for them, is just not playing much. And he was out for the game. So I think they looked and said, listen, we can beat Miami without our main guys in the middle. And they did, obviously, pulled away, had a pretty easy victory against Miami. And we could talk about the Heat. The Heat just don't look quite right. But I think they thought, we want to see what our bigs look like against the Cavs bigs, how this lineup would fare down the road. So I think it was a good litmus test for that. But I also think, give those guys a day off. Porzingis. Now you play Porzingis Wednesday against Detroit. You see if you want to either play him against the Bucks or the Memphis Grizzlies, because that's a back-to-back, and then we'll see what the schedule's like when this play-in is decided whether the Celtics make it or not. And oh, by the way, Jason Tatum was just named Player of the Month for Eastern Conference for October, November.
And Forbes 30 under 30.
Oh, okay. There you go.
Jason's balling out, but he ain't no MVP candidate apparently. Apparently he ain't that. Don't get me started. But look, back to the here's the thing about the Heat game. The Celtics were consistent with what they've been doing with their bigs for the last year and some change. Those guys just don't play in back-to-back situations, so we knew that they were, not going to be there. But to me, the Celtics, they're trying to walk this fine line between winning games, developing young talent, giving your core guys enough rest, making sure your core guys work hard enough so that they're in mid-season form down the stretch and they're good to go. And it's a tricky path to take, but the Celtics have done a hell of a job doing that. I mean, think about this. Luke Cornett had, 6 block shots against Miami, some crazy number like that. You start looking at Jordan Walls. You start looking at the Peterson kid, who's on a 2-way. You start looking at the guys that they're throwing out there and getting them playing time now. That's not normal because it's not like they're up by 25, 30 points and then they decide to play these guys. They're looking at 6, 7, 8 point leads, and you're starting to see G League guys and guys who are at the end of the bench actually getting opportunities to play. And it's not killing them. And I think if you're the Celtics, that's a big part of what this season has to be about. Yes, you're trying to defend a championship, but you're also trying to develop talent and win games along the way. And they've done a masterful job of that. I mean, again, as I pointed out earlier, they've got 4 losses by a total of 14 points. And you look at a guy like, Peterson and Jordan Walsh, they're playing way more minutes than I think anyone thought they would. And they're not playing a ton of minutes. The fact that they're actually playing is a sign of the Celtics' intentions of really developing this roster beyond just that core group. And if players are sure of whether this is going to work out, look no further than Peyton Pritchard. I mean, to me, he is the poster boy for player development if you're the Boston Celtics. This was a guy that was playing behind several accomplished, defensive player of the year, 6th man of the year. When you talk about Malcolm Brogdon, you talk about Marcus Smart, Drew Holiday, one of the just winners in that guard position. And Peyton bided his time, he got his opportunity, and he was ready. And now he's balling out. I look at J.D. Davison as someone who really, really should pay attention to what Peyton Pritchard is doing and just be ready for his opportunity because there's nothing left he can do in the G League. Dude gonna want to be in the damn LeBron James of the G League as an all-time leading scorer at this rate. And again, he's playing well at the level that he's competing at, but you want to see what can he do at the next level, and he's got to be ready for that opportunity because it is going to come. It's just a matter of when and will he be ready for that moment? But the Heat game to me in so many ways felt like just a glorified preseason / exhibition game where you saw a lot of lineups that you're not going to see if this were like the playoffs or even a game of consequence. And that's okay because if you're the Celtics, if you can get away with giving your core guys a night off and keeping the minutes down for some of your main guys while getting on the floor some of those end of the bench / G League cats, then you do that. And you get the win too. I mean, if you're the Celtics, it was just a win-win-win all the way around in that game.
Makes sense. So that being said, we talked about the various reasons why players have been out, but are there any health concerns from your two perspectives when it comes to this roster? Obviously, Derek White, we mentioned the foot. Jaylen Brown earlier this year had hamstring. And then, of course, that recent illness, Sam Hauser with his back, and, of course, with Al and Kristaps, a lot of load management, which we can expect this season. But anything stand out to you just yet?
I'm not concerned about the quality of the injuries, and by that I simply mean them lasting long. I'm concerned about the quantity because they're spreading it out. Like 1 week it's one guy, 1 week it's another guy, and they're not missing a ton of time. Yeah. But one of the reasons why this Celtics team was so damn good last year was because of the overall durability. Other than Kristaps Porzingis and Al Horford with load management, you really didn't have core guys missing much time, if at all. And they're not missing a ton of time now, but they're missing enough time to where you can see where their absence is impactful. You look at that Cleveland game, you can't convince me that a healthy Derek White wouldn't have won that game for them. When Celtics go through those stretches where no one is making shots, who usually breaks them out of that slump? Derek freaking White. When they need a big play to be made defensively and the guards are killing them, who comes up with the block or the deflection or the steal? It's usually Derek White. And so not having them around, you start recognizing how valuable they are when they are around. And I think the Celtics, they've had enough games up to this point where you understand their value and you can see their value. And my concern isn't so much about what it means now, it's what does it mean in the playoffs? Will Derek White have, kind of an ankle tweak or something like that can keep him out of a game? And will that be the one game where his presence is sorely missed? A game where maybe guys aren't making shots. And Derek would probably knock down a shot to kind of stem the tide or certainly swing the momentum of the game back in Boston's favor. So I'm not concerned about them from an overall, these injuries are going to cost them a championship. I'm concerned that it's going to make the road so much more difficult than it needs to be because of minor bumps and bruises by lots of different players other than Tatum. Tatum is the only one that, knock on wood. doesn't seem to be impacted by the rigors of defending an NBA title.
Yeah.
Let me see. I think
You're really about to say something wrong when they say, "Oh, let me see."
No. I think I just think it's important for them to be careful with minutes. I wrote about this today. Like Jason Tatum probably should have taken last night off. He just was not himself. 7 for 21, I think 3 for 12 from 3. He just looked out of it out there. But so did Bam Adebayo for Miami. Both teams coming off a back-to-back travel.
You mean Mr. Asia Wilson?
Yeah, Mr. Asia
Wow. Well done, Kwani. Well done.
Thank you.
But they had and you gotta watch Jason. You want him to be his best. You want him to be his best in April and in May and in June. And I just think it's one of those nights. And I'm not obviously none of us besides Kwani are big load management people. Like
dang, what's that supposed to mean?
Listen,
believe in load management.
Kwani Leonard.
Yeah, Kwani Leonard.
Crazy.
Believe in load management because Kwani is questionable. Kwani's already been listed as questionable for next week's podcast. And she ain't even hurt yet.
Non-COVID illness.
She like, I might get hurt.
Kwani Leonard
what's
and
going to happen
B.
over the next week?
That's wrong. That is so wrong. I'm not even like that.
Something could happen. Beware. So
Something might happen.
Yeah, something could happen. So I'm questionable. So my thing is Jason is going to play because he wants to play and he believes in playing and all that. But sometimes you got to save somebody from himself. Like this is a real rigorous time, 5 games and 7 nights. They played at Chicago. They came back and played a hard game at Cleveland where Jason played 38 minutes and he comes back. And I don't know, sometimes what Joe be thinking about, like the fourth quarter, he had Tatum in there till like 2 minutes left. He played 36 minutes against Miami.
Yeah.
He's going to need a break. And I'm not talking about 2 games off, but maybe a game just to get a breather. And we'll see what happens with the play-in. Maybe they'll get some time off during that because I think they'll have 2 games if they don't make it. If they do, then they'll be in the quarterfinal, I think, on Tuesday. But you got to ration this. And it's only December. And you don't want your guys wearing down. You don't want to be Tom Thibodeau here. So if I'm Joe, I'm watching very carefully the minutes. And I think they'll ration Kristaps and they'll ration Al. And then Jalen had a night off, and so did Derek. So both of those guys should be ready to go. But Jason's a guy I would look for because he looked out of it. And it wasn't like he was, looked terrible or you could just tell watching Tatum over the years, you can tell when he's got the pep in his step and you can tell when he's kind of grinding and he's just trying to make it through. And it was one of those nights he just didn't have all of his juice. So be careful. If I'm Joe, I'd be more aware of minutes and not wearing these guys out too early.
Yeah, facts. Before we go any further, I want to just give a quick shout out to our good friends over at Prize Picks, which is the best place to get real money sports action. With over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings, Prize Picks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 100 times your cash. Run your game all season long on Prize Picks. Sign up today and get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. Prize Picks is the best way to win real money this basketball season. Which players are going off, which ones aren't. Make your picks in less than 60 seconds and turn your sports opinions into real money all season long. And if you want in, here's what you got to do. Download the app today and use code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Again, use the code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game. Back to you, Kwani Lunis.
Thank you. Well done. This stretch that the Celtics have coming up right now, Detroit on Wednesday, Milwaukee on Friday, and then Memphis on Saturday. Which of those 3 games are you looking forward to the most? All at home.
For me, it's easy.
Detroit?
Memphis.
Oh.
Memphis.
See my dude. Detroit.
See my dude Marcus Smart. That's literally the only reason why that game matters to me. And Ja Morant, this is the thing about folks who have not watched Ja Morant play. He's special. I mean, he is a incredibly, ridiculously athletic specimen out there. I enjoy the hell out of watching him play. I like the way they play as a team. And to me, they're starting to kind of get their groove, figuring out how they can be a really, really good team in the West. And I think people forget that, before they had, Ja Morant's off the court stuff and had some injuries, they were one of the best teams in the Western Conference. And they basically have the core elements of that team still in place, only they're a year or two older now and more wise and more seasoned. So that's a team that, again, if you're the Celtics and you're looking at just measuring stick type games, you've got to look at those from both an Eastern Conference and Western Conference perspective. And Memphis could easily be a team that if you get to the finish line, you might have to go through them to get that championship. I think it's a highly unlikely scenario, but it's not out of the question at the same time. So for me, that's a matchup that I'm looking forward to seeing how the Celtics respond, especially with it being, the back end of a back-to-back.
I'm looking forward to the Milwaukee game because the Bucks are playing better. The Celtics have already beaten them twice this year. Both games have been competitive. Let's see what Milwaukee has to offer for that third game. And then if the Celtics win, they win the season series against them. So now any tiebreakers, you never know how that's going to go. But I'm looking forward to, as much as it's going to be nice to see Marcus back in uniform and playing with his guys in Memphis. And that will be a tough game because Memphis is playing well. Memphis has a day off before that game. So the Celtics will be playing on a back-to-back. Memphis will have a little bit of rest. So I'm looking forward to that. But that Milwaukee game, I want to see what the Bucks, if they change anything, if they're playing particularly better, what do they look like, in terms of like seeing them in person again after seeing them in Milwaukee a couple of weeks ago, and they looked great for about 2.5 quarters, and then they just kind of fell apart down the stretch, and the Celtics took the game from them. I want to see how they look. I want to see if they're doing anything different. So I think that's the game. Obviously, Giannis and Dame. Sherrod's buddy, Bobby Portis, Brook Lopez. So, those guys are going to come in with something to prove because they want to beat the Celtics. So I think that's going to be a very competitive game.
I love me some Bobby Portis. I ain't going to front. With them eyes, man, crazy eyes, I love me some Bobby Portis. And you know what else I love? I love the Game Time app. And for those of us who want to watch our favorite college teams play and pro teams play, there really is no better place than to get in on the action with Game Time app. They have great ticket prices on all types of sporting events as well as concerts. And when I'm thinking about college football, especially this time of year where we're talking about bowl games, you're probably going to have to get a last-minute ticket to that. And Game Time app is the place to go where you can get great prices on last-minute gets to get to where you want to be to see your team play. We've talked all season long about, Gary and his Cal Cubbies who are bowl eligible. Yay! And we talked about my Q's, who just knocked off top 5, top 6 team in the country. And BC has had a good season. And all of us will probably be going bowling to some extent. And certainly none of us want to pay a ton of money for that. And the Game Time app allows you to do that. One of the other really cool things about the Game Time app is that it has this all-in pricing that shows you the total price before you get to the checkout, and you get a panoramic view of the seat that you choose before you get to the checkout. So takes a lot of the guesswork out of and uncertainty out of where your seat is going to be and what kind of sight lines you're going to have for the game. And all you have to do to be part of this is download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. That's download the app, create an account, and use the code CLNS for $20 off. Terms apply. What time is it? Game time.
All right, let's go around the association. We'll start with LeBron James. Do you think he's off to a slow start, or is Father Time finally catching up to the 39-year-old who will be 40 at the end of this month?
Where's Sherrod?
Okay, I was waiting for that. Father Time is coming through the building with whatever. If this were a meme, it would be Father Time walking through the door, pimp strutting, because he's finally found LeBron. He's finally caught up with him. Look at the numbers. LeBron is averaging about 22 points a game. He ain't put up numbers that low since he was a rookie. He's shooting about 47-ish% from the field. He ain't done that since he was like third, fourth year in the league. You start going through the numbers, and damn near every one of them is at a level that we have not seen in a decade and some change from LeBron. That is the clearest sign that the decline that I think has been slowly seeping into this game the last 4 or 5 years, it's now starting to manifest itself in the actual data. And again, that's no hate on LeBron because LeBron is a hell of a player. And I still think that even at this stage of his career, he's still a top 25 player, top 30 player in the NBA. I still believe right now. But that guy that was dominating night in and night out, he still has that in him. It's just not as frequent. He can still ratchet up and be a dominant scorer. He can still ratchet up something and be an elite defender. You're just not going to see it as often as we've seen it in the past. And that's Father Time's way of saying, yep, yes, I am in the building. Finally. Gary, talk about your boy, LeBron, your boy.
You know what? I'm going to give him grace here. He's playing 35 minutes a game. That's a lot.
He said he wanted to play every game this season, Gary. He brought this on the show.
But I don't think he said he wanted to play damn near 36 minutes a game. Like the Lakers, once again, as we're talking about, just do not have the supporting cast, and it's too much AD and LeBron. And I think Dalton Connett's coming up and trying to be that player, but they haven't had a good season from Austin Reeves. Guys like D'Angelo Russell, they just have a bunch of guys, a bunch of just followers in that team.
Dudes.
Yes, a bunch of dudes. And it's just, to me, it's just not – I'm going to give LeBron some grace. Now, he hasn't hit a three-pointer in 4 games. He was 0 for 13, 0 for 17, 0 for 19 in his last 4 games from 3. So that's off. His percentage has gone down. He was 4 for 16. It looked like, and they played a back-to-back. Most guys his age would take that game off, and you might have to start doing that with LeBron. Like, Bron, we don't need you at Minnesota a night after getting a close win at Utah. I mean, his legs probably weren't there, and it just showed. And that's why you need these younger players to step up. They've been being carried the entire time. All these guys, Cam Reddish and Jared Vanderbilt and Rui Hachimura and all these guys that were supposed to be helpers and really contribute and be the young core, they're not. They're just watching LeBron do everything. And damn it, it's time. Like, start taking more command of your team. It's your team too. Like, I don't blame LeBron. I mean, LeBron is averaging 22, 8, and 9. I'm not going to blame him for that. Like, 22 points, 8 rebounds, 9 assists, and shooting 48% from the field. That's not horrible. He's 3rd in the league in assists. He's 26 in rebounding, and he's top 30 in scoring. Is he a top 10 player anymore? Probably not, top 15. But if that's a bad season, I'd like to have a bad season. And I'm not saying he's not struggling now, but it's about time all these other chumps on the Lakers step up and start playing ball and helping this guy out. If not, is they going to be in the same place as they were last year, in the year before that, losing in the play-in, losing in the first round? It's going to be the same place. So I'm going to give LeBron some grace here. Like, let him get some help. I mean, look at the other guys. Look at other guys. NBA was 4 for 4. Like, Cam Reddish, 0 for 1 in 11 minutes. Gabe Vincent was a minus 20 in 22 minutes the other night. Max Christie, 2 for 9 in 21 minutes. I mean, what the hell is going on? Rui Hachimura, nice game. 10 points in 29 minutes, 4 rebounds. He was a minus 11. Like, who else is going to take control? D'Angelo Russell had 20 points, but he was a minus 15, and he had 3 turnovers. Where are these guys? Dalton Connett you're depending on him. And I'm not saying he's a bad player. He's a rookie. And you're throwing him, he's going to save us. Really?
He's the best rookie you drafted.
Don't start that.
He's the best rookie you drafted.
Hey, mate, it might be time to call Bronny on. Maybe Bronny can play some minutes and help these fools.
Do that.
It might be time. It might be Bronny time. It might be Bron Jr. time. But I'm going to give LeBron some grace. I'm not going to turn around and, he's getting old, because he has defied all conventional thinking. He's made us all believers, with what he's done in the past. So I'm going to give him a break here. Now, if it lasts another couple of weeks, okay, might be time to slow it down in terms of his playing time. But, I mean, he need help. That fool ain't got no help, man. That's a damn
got dudes.
He got a bunch of dudes on there getting paid, living in L.A., at the club, in the streets, kicking in, getting their chill on at the club, all that shit. And you know what? Prove it on the court. Help your team win. Quit being a chump.
Okay, West Side.
Mic drop. Y'all heard the man. All right. Other news in the association, Paul Millsap told ESPN on Tuesday that he's officially retiring. Drafted in 2006 by the Jazz. Last team he was with was in Philly in 2022. So what do you two think about his announcement?
Gary, we talk about your boy.
Not everyone's somebody's boy on this podcast.
Millsap, not very, very, very good career. Very good career for a second-round pick out of Louisiana Tech. Made the best of it. Undersized, big, who played tough, got the boards, and deserved probably, he could have won a little more. I wish he was on, he played some good years in Atlanta, obviously Utah, had his, couple good couple years in Denver, and then he started, bounce around a little bit. But to me, a quality player, 13 points a game in his career, 7 rebounds. So, much respect to Paul Millsap, one of those guys who people won't talk about, but did the little things, was a tough guy. And people don't know, 4-time All-Star. Interesting. Yeah. So, to me, a guy who hopefully he'll get his flowers and appreciation. Almost 40, he turns 40 in February. Get his appreciation for what he did, because he was one of those glue guys that not a lot of people talk about.
Yeah, I always liked Paul Millsap because, his game was very simple. He would just back you down. He'd hit you with the mid-range. He'd hit you with the 3-ball. And he's just an effective, impactful guy and didn't really draw a whole lot of attention to his game. And as Gary pointed out, as a second-round pick, your goal is to just get your ass on a roster. You're not caring about minutes or anything like that. You just want to get a guaranteed contract. And, he didn't go to one of the blue bloods of college basketball, so he didn't have that going for him. He was a self-made NBA player, a guy that found ways to help his team wherever he went. And to get, the other point Gary brought that I thought was important to point out is that he was a 4-time All-Star. And we all know that when you are in the NBA, that's the magic number to reach for, because anyone can have a great year or two and be an All-Star. But when you start tacking that on with 3, 4, 5, etc., so on, you're a bona fide impact player. You're not just some dude who had a couple good years. You are a legitimate player that teams have to worry about in their scouting report. And, for a second-round pick, coming from a small, tiny school, Paul Millsap had a great career. And certainly, I wish that there was a way that people could recognize just how good a player he was and do some things, like I would love for the Utah Jazz or the Atlanta Hawks or one of those teams he played for to have like a Paul Millsap night where you just bring him back and you just do the little do something pregame and you show a video at the half and have him say a few words and call it a night, because he should have that honor and distinction. For being a 4-time All-Star is not easy at all. When you start looking at the guys who've been All-Stars 4 more times, and the fact that Paul Millsap is in that conversation because he's earned the right to be in that conversation, the overwhelming majority of those guys are Hall of Famers. Now, am I saying Paul Millsap is a Hall of Famer? No. I don't think so. But the fact is he's got some of the credentials that would at least put him someone who he's not maybe in the conversation, but in the room of 4-time All-Stars, most of whom are Hall of Famers, Paul is in that room as well.
That's real. Okay, finally, let's talk about the Atlanta Hawks. They're sitting at number 6 right now in the Eastern Conference standings. Do you two buy or sell the fact that they might be good?
Sell it. Sell it.
I
no. As much as I would love for the Celtics to be playing the Hawks in the playoffs for completely 100% selfish ass reasons.
I can see my friend Lauren.
Oh, yeah, that too.
Yeah.
I'm having a hard time believing that this team is going to sustain themselves as a top 6 team in the Eastern Conference. As watered down as the Eastern Conference is, I don't see it. Trae Young is having a great season. I don't think he gets enough credit for what he does out there, but I do recognize the fact that defensively, he's still a walking turnstile. Defensively, he is yet to figure out how to be solid. I don't need you to be spectacular. I just need you to be solid. Steph Curry is solid. Nowhere close to being spectacular, but he's very solid. And if you have the kind of offensive acumen and firepower that Trae Young has, it's mind-blowing that you can't be an adequate defender, because the damn sure ain't about ability. You are too crafty with the ball in your hands and scoring the ball to not be smart enough and crafty enough to get by defensively and not be a defensive liability. So overall, I just don't think Atlanta is deep enough to be a top 6 team in the Eastern Conference when all is said and done.
I think they have a lot of tools. If you put together their roster, Jalen Johnson, Dyson Daniels, the 2 bigs, Capella and Okwandu, Trae Young, who when he steps back and distributes the ball and doesn't do the 30-footers as much, they're a quality team. I'm not saying they're going to, I think they can make the playoffs. The East is very poor. It's a crapshoot. First 3 or 4 teams is terrible. And so I think probably the expectations in Atlanta have changed quickly because they beat the Celtics, they beat the Cavs twice in 3 days. This team can play when they have all their tools, right? And they play the right way. You got DeAndre Hunter. We've always wondered, why isn't he better? Why isn't he
we still wondering that, Gary. He's been in the league damn near a decade.
Yeah, I mean, when he plays well, he can play well. But Bogdanović, a great 3-point shooter, a guy who's a killer. I mean, you saw what he almost did at Team USA. That dude tough. He don't care. He brother, whoever is in his face, I don't care. That's Serbian. He a Serbian killer, tough guy. I always like that guy.
That's a fire nickname, Serbian Killer.
Yeah, I mean, not a legitimate. You know what I'm saying?
Gary, Gary, what you promoting violence on the show for?
Stop.
Basketball floor. On the basketball floor, sniper.
Of course.
Basketball floor. But
he ain't trying to kill nobody.
Yeah, he ain't trying to kill nobody. He ain't your boy Vitor Gavarani. Somebody trying to kill you, Vitor?
Well, that's because I'm concerned. I was concerned for my boy.
Anyway, we'll tell that story.
Continue with your story, Gary.
So I think the Hawks have a chance to get that 5th or 6th seed. I think they can avoid the play-in. I think if they stay health has always been an issue in Atlanta, but 2 quality bigs, right? Jalen Johnson's a guy who's emerging, kind of has just been, one and done at Duke. Didn't have a big name at Duke, kind of just was like the guys like Cam Reddish and some of these guys that just kind of went through Duke and decided I'm ready for the league when they probably weren't. Now he's turned himself into a quad ball player. Trae Young is playing the right way, being more of a distributor. So you put that team together, and then Dyson Daniels is a guy in New Orleans. You were like, okay, why are you in the league? He just seemed like a deer in headlights. Second year, elite defender, and a guy who's learning how to score. So yeah, I'm not saying the Hawks going to win the second round, but they can avoid the play-in. I'm convinced of that because you look at the East, and then you like Sherrod said, it's terrible.
My Pistons going to get in this year.
Yeah.
My Pistons, they're going to get in this year.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
All right.
There you go. All right.
On that note,
exactly.
we want to give one more shout out to Prize Picks, the exclusive daily fantasy partner of the CLNS Media Network. Also, shout out to our good friends at Game Time, which they take the guesswork out of buying last-minute tickets to your favorite sporting events. Just download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code CLNS, no extra N, for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. All right. Any final words from you two?
Nah, I'm hungry though. I think I want a burrito or something.
Craven Mexican. Wow.
Yeah.
Full circle episode of this podcast.
I love me some burritos.
What's your go-to in Boston?
I'm not gonna say.
Really? Felipe's is mine. I mean, that's a cliche answer, but
I don't say because they're not a sponsor.
That's real. All right. Well, Felipe's, you got to sponsor us now. Sorry. This was a trick.
See, Gary.
Oh.
You're not using that ACC education.
We'll let our sales guys do the work.
You gotta use that ACC education, Kwani. Come on, right. You're part of the conference now.
Not the ACC shade.
Exactly.
All right. Well, that's all for this week's episode. We appreciate you listening. Friendly reminder, because I haven't said this in a while, send this to a friend that you think would be interested. Subscribe, like if you haven't already. And as always, we'll be back next week with the latest. For Sherrod Blakely and Gary Washburn, I'm Kwani Lunis, and this is the Big 3 NBA Podcast.